Major General in Reserve Yitzchak Brik was right about quite a lot when he was the ombudsman and when he was writing about some of the failures in the IDF prior to October 7th. Of course, he actually warned of something similar to a failure like the Yom Kippur War before the October 7th attack. Today in Haaretz, he published an article and it says, Hamas isn't an existential threat. The threats of the future are far greater. I want to highlight a few points here. Rather than indulging in fantasy, the political leadership must get all hostages released without imposing conditions that Hamas would never accept anyway. It must stop the war that has lost all purpose and focus on rebuilding Israel, its economy, its social cohesiveness, its international relations, and its military. I don't necessarily agree with everything he said there. He comes from a particular way of thinking within the IDF that perhaps doesn't truly believe in completely destroying Hamas and eliminating Hamas. I think there's compelling cases that it could actually have been done or could be done, and we can agree to disagree on that. I want to highlight what he says here about certain things in the army. This change requires a security concept that's different from the one formulated by David Ben-Gurion in the 1950s. The Israel Defense Forces must be equipped with new weaponry and must adopt an entirely different operating strategy. All of this hasn't been done in the IDF in recent years due to a fixation on thought and deed, arrogance, smugness, ego, unprofessionalism, evasion of responsibility, and criminal negligence. The army went into atrophy and abandoned Israel's security in every aspect. No proper security strategy for current and future wars has been formulated. The current home front was left unprepared for war. Ground forces have been cut and cannot meet the war's challenges. The IDF has also failed to formulate a defensive and offensive strategy with respect to missiles, rockets, and drones. He talks about a few different devices that could have been purchased and were not purchased. And he particularly highlights, furthermore, a powerful laser is the only device that would be able to intercept maneuverable hypersonic missiles. In addition, a multi-barrel radar-guided anti-aircraft system, which is highly effective against drones, hasn't been purchased either. Tens of thousands of intelligence gathering and attack drones haven't been purchased, and the ground forces haven't been increased. Let's focus on that drone aspect. There have been thousands, if not tens of thousands of drones donated by operations like Unit 11741 and others. Major shout out to the Alevi family and to Simeon and others, Devorah, who've been doing things nonstop trying to get drones into the hands of soldiers. It's obvious that there's a major gap. And there's also a major gap in terms of maintenance and understanding. Yes, the Army and the Ministry of Defense have purchased some drones, but there are still major gaps as of February 2025. And it's hard to understand in some ways how this could still be possible. But when you really dig deep into the extent of the issues within the IDF and purchasing, it's really not so difficult because they never thought that they would have to fight like this. And there are so many glaring issues that need to be dealt with. This is just one that's added to the list. It's sad because the cost of these things is actually negligible relative to one F-35 or other very expensive equipment. So that's what makes it very difficult, but it's really been picked up from the civilian leg of things and people helping out. The drone that actually tracks Sinwar was a donation. He also notes, Israel currently has no forces along the Jordanian border, and for years has been failing to prevent the smuggling of hundreds of thousands of weapons and explosive devices into the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, which could bring about a third intifada. It must be taken into account that under certain conditions, Egypt could also join the fray, as well as Hamas in Gaza. These are the scenarios that the IDF must prepare for. If nothing happens, how lucky we are. But if disaster strikes, we will be in dire straits. We must prepare for the potential threat, not for our assessment of the enemy's intentions, as military intelligence has done in the past, always getting it wrong. This is according to Yitzchak Brik. This is not according to me. I think the Jewish community at large needs to think about how we internalize these threats, because Israel has problems. There are many, many enemies staring the country down, looking for one mistake and looking to take advantage. And it would be a shame if the global Jewish community reverted back to a 10-6 approach and not a 10-8 approach in terms of trying to help and be there to help the IDF and the soldiers however we can. It's extremely important that these threats are taken seriously. Yitzchak Brik was right once before, and in the event that he is right again, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And it's imperative that we take these threats seriously and do whatever we can to help.